Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the TradFi to DeFi podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest. We actually, John, are going through our list of OGs who have been early members of the TradFi to DeFi podcast or the TradFi to DeFi community before we even had any ideas of being a podcast. And I'm really excited to introduce another guest today. His name is Taylor, and he is a Solidity developer at Decent DAO. Welcome to the podcast, Taylor. How are you doing today?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's always
we're
good
really
to go over our successes because, of course, we don't have any failures here at TradFi to DeFi. So let's go with the success stories.
always smooth sailing indeed. So, Taylor, we usually want to just get a sense of, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get started in crypto?
Yeah, for sure. So, I originally got into crypto in 2015. I discovered Bitcoin and thought it was super cool and just, started investing, bought some Bitcoin at that point, but it was just kind of sitting on the sidelines at that time. And then in 2019 is sort of when I started discovering like DeFi and Ethereum, and I was really inspired by projects like Maker and Uniswap, and really wanted to start building in the space. And I started studying Solidity and Web3 stuff, and ended up launching my own project in 2020.
Awesome. So prior to all this, you had some coding experience, or did you pick that up along the way? Did that inspire you to learn that, or were you already became preformed, so to speak, into the space?
Yeah, I definitely had some coding experience from college and from previous jobs. So before crypto, I was a mechanical engineer. I did a lot of like automation and controls engineering. So that definitely exposed me to a lot of programming concepts before I started studying Solidity.
Gotcha.
So when you first were exposed to Bitcoin, like what was it about it that got your interest to even consider start investing in it? You said 2015, right? So that would make you a little bit more of an OG than many people who are in the space today.
Yeah, I just thought the whole concept was beautiful. I saw the value in a decentralized network where everything's permissionless. There's no central entity that can change things about the system. It's all about the consensus of the entire community, and I just saw a ton of value in that, and at that point in time, and still do believe that blockchain tech's gonna change the world for the better. I think it already has started to, for sure, but I think in the future it's going to be massive for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah,
we're all looking forward to
agree
that.
More. Yeah, it's kind of why we're doing all this TradFi to DeFi in the first place. Is like we're making a very bullish bet on the future, and so like this is interesting. So you're initially attracted to this decentralized network idea. The concepts are really interesting. That's what got me into crypto. Was the idea is really fascinating, and so this journey of having some of this programming and engineering experience in the background, you get exposed to Bitcoin, right? So talk us through this journey now. So like, how did you get to kind of where you are now, where you're a developer specifically in Solidity and crypto? What was that journey like going from just being like, oh, okay, I'll throw in some money into Bitcoin, and oh, wow, this is actually really cool tech. Oh my goodness, now I'm actually an engineer in the space, like doing that kind of work. Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned like Maker and Uniswap. I found those protocols in 2019. And then, just sort of dove straight into it and just spent most of 2020 like learning the stuff and building that side project that I launched on mainnet at the end of 2020, and then that's probably where I learned most of what I know now about Solidity and Web3 stuff is just building that project, and then early 2021 is when I decided that I wanted to make the career switch full-time to full-time crypto. And that's when I, it's about this time last year, I think I was in the, joined the TradFi to DeFi group and, got some feedback, and then started applying for jobs, and got the job at Decent Labs in June of last year.
Excellent. So at that point, you decided to burn the boats and go all in, huh?
That's right. Absolutely.
That's excellent. I mean, was there any one thing that said, okay, one event that said, okay, I'm ready for the switch? I mean, did you get tired of your old job, or you just go, okay, if I'm ever going to make the jump, I'm going to do it now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I just found myself like just not being passionate about the job I was in. You know, I was spending all my time, you know, researching crypto stuff. You know, that's what I wanted to do full time. So, yeah, when I launched the project, my intentions weren't for it to be like a stepping stone for getting a full time job. You know, I was like, oh, this project's gonna make me a lot of money, and then I'll just retire or whatever. But of course, things don't always work out that way. But it turned out to be.
That's why you're not retired right now.
That's right. But no, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. Yeah, I'm super happy to have found the job at Decent. So
yeah, and we hear that story quite often is people are like they're working a job that they may or may not like. It might not be fulfilling, but they spend all their spare time and their hobby time and free time researching crypto, getting into it, learning it, investing in it. And then there's that light goes on. It's like, I'm pretty much doing this already, so I might as well make the jump. So that's a real common theme that I keep hearing. It's like, you know, I'm already doing this stuff, so why not make it a job, a career, a path forward? So that's interesting. That theme kind of, we keep hearing that over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, after working in the industry for almost a year full time, it's hard to imagine going back to anything else. Just, you know, the pay is great, like super flexible. You know, almost all the jobs are remote, and it's just a fun industry to be in. You know, there's so much happening, and it's just changing so quickly. So yeah,
I don't think anybody goes back once they're in it. You know,
You're right. No, I don't think anyone does.
I had the same conversation with one of my friends the other day. I said, can you imagine like going back to TradFi? Because he came from a wealth management background like I did. And I was just like, can you imagine like you doing like a 60-40 portfolio, like traditional investments? Like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like there's so much more exciting things that are being built here. And I would encourage our audience, if they're listening to this and they can kind of relate, like one way to tell is if you're really down the rabbit hole is like look at your YouTube watch history or look at your internet history. And if it's all crypto and you're spending all of your free time in crypto, it might be time to kind of consider making that jump from traditional finance to DeFi, or just from whatever it is you're doing in your day job to DeFi. You know, I resonate with your story a lot, Taylor. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing today in crypto, because you've been on this exciting journey of going from place where you weren't in crypto to now getting into crypto and making this exciting leap. What do you do today?
Yeah, so on a day-to-day basis, I mean, I would say 70 or 80% of my time, you know, I'm writing code. You know, maybe half the time it's Solidity and tests for the Solidity, and then the other half it's creating web apps that for these, you know, Web3 front ends that integrate with the smart contracts. So it's both of those things, and then you know some meetings. You know, we have at Decent, we have a great design team that builds up, creates the website designs for us. You know, they do branding, they create, you know, logos and all that stuff. So we work with them pretty closely on you know, get into the final product. So that's a lot of fun, and then. Yeah, we do a lot of paired programming as well. So like, you know, you hop on a call with a coworker and just like, you know, work through some code together, you know, sharing your screen and just sort of collaborate on solving different, you know, coding problems you run into. But yeah, oh, and I guess specifically the project that we're working on right now is called Fractal that we're building at Decent DAO. So it's a framework for creating DAOs that'll be very scalable and flexible on Ethereum.
Awesome. Yeah, we want to hear a little bit more about that. But I did find it interesting, especially I'm not a programmer. I don't write code, but that seems, and maybe you can tell us a little about that paired coding when you're side by side with somebody else. And working on a coding problem, that's got to be a really great way to actually learn, you know, where you're coding side by side, maybe with somebody more experienced, and it's like, well, here's what we would do in this case. And that sounds really exciting. I mean, even beyond crypto and in this kind of remote learning, remote work kind of situation, especially with coding, that would be great. And because I know there's a lot of people out there that goes, I wish I was in his seat and doing what he's doing, but it didn't take that much for you to get that. Well, I mean, it's a lot of hard work. I don't mean to minimize that, but there's tools and ways to get where you are that are not beyond the reach of the average person with average technical ability.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, pair program is a great tool for, especially in a remote work environment where, we're not in the same room as our coworkers, but yeah, it's definitely a good way to collaborate and learn stuff from each other. Yeah, one of my coworkers, Chris, that I think you guys should have on at some point. He and I are working on this project together, and there's some days where we're on pair programming calls for like 6 hours out of the day, so but we're having a good time while we're doing it, so yeah, we like it.
It's like one of my colleagues, we'll have Zoom on, and we're just working together, and it's like on. We're not programming, we're doing different stuff, but it's kind of this asynchronous working together thing in remote environments just never would have been possible. Like, I mean, it would have been possible like several years ago. Like, the tech has always been there, but it's only recently with all of these changes that everyone's like more flexible with this. And so I want to get to some of that stuff you were talking about with like tools that can help people get into this. But before we do, I want to understand a little bit more about Decent DAO, what you're doing there, and Fractal specifically. So tell us about Decent DAO and your role in that organization, and then about Fractal and how this DAO tooling is going to work.
Yeah, definitely. So Decent used to be, or I guess right now we're in the process of transitioning from Decent Labs, which was a venture studio that would partner with crypto startups and help them build their products, and becoming Decent DAO, which is effectively just, I think of as the on-chain like manifestation of that. So it's an on-chain venture studio. So we'll do internal projects like Fractal, but then also like community members will be able to propose new projects. And if the DAO approves the project, then the DAO will help them build the project and take some equity in it, take tokens in it. So that's kind of the idea of Decent DAO, but we're still going through that transition process now. And then Fractal. Fractal is a framework for creating DAOs, and sort of like the core idea is that you can have sub DAOs, right? So like a DAO maybe has like sort of like a niche group of users that want to have a DAO focused on that thing, and so like they create a proposal within that DAO to create a sub DAO, and then if it passes, the sub DAO gets created, and you can effectively have sub DAOs, as far down as they want.
Is it DAOs all the way down?
It's DAOs all the way down. I guess the long-term vision is you end up with this fractal sort of structure of DAOs that are all.
That's the reason why it's called Fractal.
Yeah, exactly. So we're wrapping up the smart contract development for the MVP of that currently, and then going to start building out the web app and hopefully launch within the next month or two. So pretty exciting.
Great. That's really interesting, the name Fractal. And then while you were talking about it, and I've always wondered this, but I obviously did not put any gray matter to the problem of why it's called Decent DAO. Is it? And then I've gone, well, it must be a pretty decent DAO if it's called Decent DAO. But I'm like, and I finally got it. It's like decentralized. And I finally kind of put that together. I'm a little bit.
I just now put that together. I didn't realize that somehow
I'm a little slow, but I finally got it. I go, it's kind of an odd name, And I go through this in crypto all the time that it's kind of terminology that is kind of contracted together, and I finally got it. So thanks. But yeah, it makes sense though. I mean, so basically, you're building a toolkit for DAOs. Really, is what it is, and all the framework that goes in there. That when it launches and when it's ready, is this something that the DAO doesn't necessarily need a smart contract programmer to get them up and running? It's kind of already prepackaged for them?
Yeah, that's right. the smart contracts will handle everything behind the scenes, but the user will just interact with the web app, which will have a nice looking user interface and user experience. So they won't have to know Solidity or anything like that to create a DAO or create a proposal or vote on a proposal. It should be a pretty intuitive experience.
Yeah, because I feel like this is something that's desperately needed in the industry. People are always talking about DAO tooling and how it's lacking, and people need tools to make DAOs. And sometimes we wonder about whether or not a DAO actually does need to be created. But in the event that it does, and you actually do want to spin up a DAO, to be able to have one holistic solution that doesn't require programming, that's got to be a really killer use case.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are some competitors out there that already do this, like Aragon, for example. But yeah, we're just trying to build something that's more flexible and a little more user friendly than that. And I think we're gonna do that.
That's kind of interesting.
I think, John, we'll watch it closely.
You have this toolkit to build a DAO, and if you just roll the clock back 15 or 20 years, people were building toolkits so people could build their own web page and websites. This is really kind of the same thing. And believe me, having gone through that back then, those are some really crappy tools when they first started out. It's like, it's all here for you to do, and then it's like, I need to know PHP, and then it's just, and it was a mess, and so I hope you guys, I wish you guys the best of luck in getting that off the ground, because there's a lot of growing pains in doing a web page, which is common nowadays, but back then it was really hard. And DAOs are the same way. There's some growing pains out there in DAOs and getting them up and going and getting them functioning and the governance done right. And it's a big challenge, and I look forward to seeing more from you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, well, if TradFi to DeFi ever needs to launch a DAO, come to Fractal.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say, John. We have to watch this very closely, because I think we're going to be, that's something in our long-term vision, if it makes sense for the community. And it's also something we want to make sure that the community decides, right? And so everything that we do here at TradFi to DeFi is try to empower our community and help them be a part of this decision-making process. So if you're a community member listening to this, maybe we should start poking around at Decent DAO. So we're going to get to some of that as well, Taylor, in just a second. But why don't we, since we're on the subject of TradFi to DeFi, could you tell us a little bit about how TradFi to DeFi may have played a small role in your journey? We can't take all the credit for some of the amazing success that you have in your career, and we're really proud and excited of everything that you're doing. But how has TradFi to DeFi been a part of this story?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, it was around this time last year when I joined the group and on Telegram. I just thought it was really cool and inspirational to see a group of people that was trying to do the same thing I was, make that career transition. And then, I think you guys were offering feedback on resumes, and so I, got my resume together and submitted it and got some really useful feedback, incorporated it into the resume, and then. I started applying for jobs and got the job with Decent a month or two later. So, yeah.
Excellent.
That makes me really happy to hear those stories. I have a list of community success stories, and it's so exciting to hear even just the smallest thing, that if you can bring people together in an environment like TradFi to DeFi, this has mostly been our goal, which is if we can just bring a bunch of like-minded people individually together, the synergies that naturally form are going to far exceed any value that you can individually try and present. And so we've just been listening and engaging with our community to try and respond to the things that they need and want and are interested in. And so, if you're listening to this and this sounds like something that's interesting to you, we'd encourage you to join TradFi to DeFi and take a look. So on that subject as well, what would you say to somebody, Taylor, who's hearing your story and is interested in learning more and wants to think, okay, well, maybe I'd like to be a programmer. Maybe I'd like to become a Solidity developer. Maybe I'd actually like to start writing some of this code. What would you tell them? Where would they even start?
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of great classes out there. Some of them are free. Some of them cost a little bit of money. I highly recommend doing that. Taking those classes. There's a great book called Mastering Ethereum by Andreas Antonopoulos that gets pretty technical, but it starts out assuming that you don't know anything about the space. And then, the beauty of the space is that pretty much everything's open source, so you can just go on GitHub and pull up, your favorite projects, just read through the smart contracts. You can read through the test suite. You can read through the web app, just doing a lot of that. And then, just creating projects, coming up with ideas, creating the project. Maybe you only launch it on a test net, because you don't want to put real money on the table yet. But just building your own stuff, and then you can put it on your GitHub repository, and that's your portfolio. That's kind of what recruiters look at in turn, to see what you can do, what you can build, what you've built in the past.
That's kind of interesting, and I harken back to a comment I've always made, and I seem like I make it every podcast, about the nature of crypto, the opportunity, the low barrier to entry, skill-wise. Well, not skill-wise, you have to build up skills, but it's like people are like, well, little Johnny's going to college, and so like, what should he study? And it's like, nothing. He should learn how to code, and before he would even, graduate from college, he'll be making, six figures, and he won't be in debt, and it's like, people are like, well, they need a college education. It's like, well, that would be great, and college educations are useful. I have one myself, but that was really the only option back then, and it just sounds like there's such an opportunity for people who, with little money and maybe some extra time, can really actually get into the space. And I mean, like GitHub, it's like you have a portfolio of programs you've written and smart contracts, and maybe even a project that you've done, and you can show that to somebody, and it's like, I don't want to see your college degree. I want to see what you can do for me, and it's like, bam. I don't know how it was for you at Decent DAO, but it must have been a little bit easier than maybe your first job as a mechanical engineer, and the interview process, and and what went on there.
No, I mean, actually, I would say the interview process was probably a little more rigorous for Decent DAO. I mean, there's several rounds, and it involved most of these technical crypto jobs will involve like a coding challenge. Usually it's a take-home coding challenge. So after one of the first interviews, they'll send you this challenge and say that you need to build this by this date, and you just got to write the code and then put it on GitHub, and then you'll have a follow-up meeting where you go over it, and they'll probably make a decision from there based off of the quality of your code. But yeah, no. Overall, I would say like the interview process was a little more rigorous than my engineering jobs in the past, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, and if people are interested in more of the coding aspect, this is an area of TradFi to DeFi we've been wanting to expand into. I think it'd be fun to tease some of the exciting things we're going to be working on together with Decent DAO in the next couple of weeks. So. At a very high level, Taylor, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the things that we're talking about doing maybe mid-April of next month. We're talking about doing some collaborations between both of our communities, and I think this would be a great place for people to come if they want to start getting exposed to coding.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we're going to talk further about, the career transition from, making the transition to full-time crypto, and then also, we'd love to go into more detail on some of the technical side of things, like some of the, some of the resources I used along the way to learn Solidity and web app development. And yeah, I'd love to get some of our coworkers on there from Decent to share some of their resources they used and their journeys to get there as well.
Yeah, we're going to do a joint collaborative community event with Decent and TradFi to DeFi, bridging these two worlds together. And we're going to be bringing some of our community members to kind of present the angle of traditional finance and the ways that we approach the space, and some of the takeaways that we can learn from that, but also talking to the people who actually make the apps and the decentralized applications that we all love to use to actually figure out what's going on under the hood. And so I think it'll be a really exciting opportunity. Stay tuned to TradFi to DeFi and our community pages just for that announcement. When we announce that, we'll be on with Taylor and a couple of his colleagues, John and I, and I think we're going to be doing like a 3-part series. So we're very excited about it. We're teasing it now on this podcast. We want to make sure we get the word out there. The But yeah, Taylor, this has been a really exciting conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'd love to know, like, tell the audience, where can people reach you if they want to learn more about you and Decent and the stuff that you're working on?
Yeah, for sure. I hang out in the Decent DAO Discord. So I think the easiest way to find that right now is you can go to decentlabs.io. And also, I think you mentioned that we can drop these links in the show notes, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, so we can drop that Discord invite link in the show notes. Cool.
Taylor, are you on Twitter as well?
No, I'm just a lurker on Twitter. I'm not super active.
Just lurker.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast today, Taylor. We enjoyed having you. We're looking forward to some fun and exciting stuff between both of our communities. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for listening to TradFi to DeFi. We're excited to have you listening in on our podcast, and we will catch you all on the next one. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.